Important events of the last decades, from the crisis of the socialist bloc until today, the digital era. Gulf War. Iraq invades Kuwait in August 1990. Arab powers called on the United States for help, and the Persian Gulf War began with a massive US-led air offensive known as Operation Desert Storm. After 42 days of attack by the Allied coalition in the air and on the ground, US President George H.W. Bush declared a ceasefire on February 28. By the time, most Iraqi forces in Kuwait had either surrendered or fled. In all, an estimate of 10,000 Iraqi forces were killed, in comparison with only 300 coalition troops. As a consequence, the constitutionalist forces and the democratic opposition were strengthened vis-à-vis the autocratic tendencies of the ruling family with the restoration of democracy. NAFTA, 1994. A trilateral free trade deal signed by US President Bill Clinton, Mexican President Carlos Salinas, and Canadian Prime Minister Jean Chrétien. The central thrust of the agreement is to eliminate most tariffs on products traded among these countries. It is also implemented intellectual property protections, established dispute resolutions mechanisms, and set up regional labor and environmental safeguards. Now, intra-regional trade flows have increased significantly over the treaty's first 2 decades. US trade with Mexico was growing before NAFTA's implementation. WTO 1995. The World Trade Organization was born out of the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, GATT, a series of trade negotiations that began at the end of World War II and were aimed at reducing tariffs for the facilitation of global trade on goods. Its functions are to monitor national trade policies, technical assistance, and training, cooperate with international organizations, forum for trade organizations. As a result, this promoted peace between nations. Disputes are handled constructively. Trade stimulates economic growth and income of country. 9/11 attacks. 2001. World Trade Center towers collapsed under attack the Islamic extremist group Al Qaeda. He attacked 4 airliners and carried out suicide attacks against targets in the United States. 2 of the planes were flown into the towers of the World Trade Center in New York City. A third plane hit the Pentagon outside Washington, and the fourth plane crashed in a field in Pennsylvania. Over 3,000 people were killed during the attacks. Finally, the attack on the World Trade Center created an acute environmental disaster of enormous magnitude. Globalization is the speed up of movements and exchanges of human beings, goods and services, capital, technologies, or cultural practices all over the planet. It promotes and increases the interactions between different regions and populations all around the globe. Terrorism. Criminal acts intended or calculated to provoke a state of terror in the public. A group of persons or particular persons for political purposes are in any circumstances injustifiable, whatever the considerations of a political, philosophical, ideological, racial, ethnic, religious, or any other nature that may be invoked to justify them. Unipolar world. At the end of the bipolar era and hegemony, this new type of world order emerged and was imposed. It consists in the domain that exerts only one determined world power that will organize, articulate, and enforce the general rules of the system, including cultural, economic, and military influence. Digital era. It consists of the change from mechanical, electrical, and analog technology to this new digital technology, starting from 1980 and referring to the radical changes that computer science has done with the help of the communication in technology. Why did globalization emerge? First of all, because the globalization was imposed by large financial and political organizations. including multinationals that has all the control over institutions and society. It was with the purpose of preventing rich countries for becoming richer or poor countries for becoming poorer, and finally to share the new technologies, information, and knowledge of some countries with the rest of the world. Every country has something to share, and the whole globe will know. How does the end of the Cold War relate with the unipolar world? It is this big difference which makes them relate with each other, because the Cold War was a conflict between two major powers that were fighting for the chance of ruling the world with one superpower, and that is what unipolarity is about, having one superpower that is the world leader. In most cases, what caused the attacks of 20th century? Terrorism always seek to coerce and pressure the government or society to impose their proclamations, and these last claim in the 20th century are mostly about religion, politics, and social changes. They are demanding in a violent way to the government or the society. How has the digital era influenced today's society? It has made everything easier in the way of communication, searching, social life, and information. The digital era brought a lot of things that opened door to the people for having easier ways of getting something and created a world more connected. But with this new era, bad things also are here. So now your social class, race, and physical aspect can make you vulnerable to discrimination through social life too.